Welcome everyone to this month's session of Spiritual Questions Answered. And today's topic is to go with the flow or not. So can I have maybe a show of hands? How many of you struggle with this question, right? To go with the flow or not? Is that why you are here? Anyone? Is there anyone who finds that, you are maybe not very sure whether to go with the flow because there are a lot of sayings, right? There are a lot of sayings out there, different advice given to go with the flow, right? And there is also the opposite advice. Right? Have you? Does anyone knows the opposite advice of go with the flow? Using a same metaphor or analogy, does anyone know? There's an opposite advice given to go with the flow, right? Very famous advice. So yeah, why are you saying yeah? This is $1 million question. And how many of you know of religious or spiritual philosophy whereby they emphasize go with the flow? Anyone? I don't want it to be just me talking, but you all can contribute. So what I would like to is try to address, like Wahib says, this $1 million question. Because on one hand, there are a lot of sayings and advice and proverbs, and religious and spiritual principle telling people to go with the flow, right? And there is even a religion and famous religious text that talks about this, going not say exactly about this, but there's a religion or religious text whereby a huge part of it seems to indicate favorably for going with the flow. And yet, on the other hand, right, there is a different metaphor, right? Using the same metaphor of flowing, there is another, there are other sayings. So the first question is, go with the flow or not, right? And there's even a religion on it. Does anyone knows the religion or the spiritual text, famous spiritual text that talks, about philosophy, a way of living life, and huge part of it is about going with the flow? Yes, why you got that right. So the religion or the text, and the text that's linked to it is Taoism. All right, Taoism, right? And the book is called Tao Te Ching. Those in Chinese is will be Tao, T-A-O, Tao Te Ching, G-I-N-G. All right, so this is a very famous religion and philosophy, and this book is very famous. But it's actually, it's actually, if it's like modern translations, the book is actually very thin, right? And basically there are about, if I'm not wrong, 81 poems in Chinese. But those of you who know Chinese, is written in poem form, very poetic, and a lot of nuance and different kind of meanings, and different people will interpret it slightly differently. All right, and Chinese is not very easy to interpret, especially when they are being very poetry and metaphorical. So this is the very famous religion and spiritual text. And then on the other side, there is different sayings, different advice, and I think the best one would be this saying, right? There's a lot of people who say, be the captain of your ship. Right? Have anyone heard of something like that? Right? There will be saying that ask you to be the captain of your ship, so you got to take charge of your ship. don't just go with the flow. You got to take charge of your ship. You must need to know where you want to sail. Correct or not? It is a very different philosophy, right? And Edwin is saying definition of go with the flow. Is it meaning let go, detach? We shall talk about what does it mean to go with the flow. And by saying birds don't fly, they are being flown. Fish don't swim, they are being carried by the water. I guess that is a wise way of answering Edwin. But I mean, if you talk about what Bayi was trying to say, do birds actually don't fly? They have to flap their wings, right? And fish, if they swim, right, they can swim against the flow. Correct or not? Do fish just go with the flow? Now, so let's first of all talk about what exactly is go with the flow. All right, and then I would like to talk a little bit about Tao Te Ching. All right, the Tao Te Ching or Tao Te Ching, right? In Chinese, called Tao Te Ching. Just so that you all can appreciate it a little bit, and then we will address this thing so that we can address this question to go with the flow or not from different levels. I would say different levels because there is, I can say outright right now, there is not very clear, just one answer that can fit all. All right. So I will just state it very clearly. There's no one. You cannot just go with the flow all the time. That's my take on it. All right, because you must see the situation, and that's why there are sometimes people will say you need to be the captain of your ship. So what does go with the flow mean? Now, I think it's a very simple analogy. Imagine a river, right? A river, if you're on the river or in the sea and you go with the flow, right? In the river, I think it's very obvious because the river is always flowing, right? And if you go with the flow, that means you just let the river take you wherever you may be, right? And I would think that if you're really going with the flow, all right, if you're really going with the flow, you're kind of like a driftwood. You know what a driftwood is? Or it's like a piece of wood that is just drifting along the river. Wherever the river goes, and depending on where you are on the river, and if you're a driftwood, you have no control. You're not like a boat. All right, I'm going to contrast this with this. All right, if you're captain of a ship, there is a boat, and you're a captain, and you can do something about it. But if you're really going with the flow, you'll be like a driftwood. So it depends where you're tossed onto the river. Now, I don't know whether you all know about the river. Now, let's say I use river because it's easy, right? So the river is flowing. Now, river flow the fastest where? In the middle of the river, usually, correct? And the water is slowest at the sides. So the speed of the water in the river will be fastest in the center, and then it diminishes towards the end, towards the banks of the river, right? And it doesn't just diminish at the banks of the river. If we were to look carefully, a lot of times, right, at the banks of the river, due to it's not necessarily straight, there'll be rocks and everything, there'll be a lot of swirling, right? It will be circling. You get what I mean? It will be swirling kind of currents, right, at the sides. So if you're a piece of driftwood, or if everyone were to go with the flow, now it depends on luck, right? Your driftwood land where in the river, and in the river there may be rocks, right? There may be rocks and boulders, right? And there may be different things in the river. There may be a river bend, right? The river may branch off one side, and then a small stream the other side, right? Things like this can happen, right? Now, if we were to go with the flow, what does it mean? You are driftwood and you don't really get to choose what happens to you. So it depends on your luck, right? You can be if you're in the center, you'll be flowing very fast. right? But flowing very fast, does that mean that is it good or bad? But it depends what is in the center. If the center you're flowing fast and there's a rock, and then you get smashed into pieces, right? Driftwood can still get smashed into pieces. Then that's it. You know, it may be good for you, or may be bad for you, or may be temporarily bad for you, and may be good for you later. It's hard to say, but you have no say, right? Or you can be dropped towards the sides, or somehow you go towards the sides, and then you go to you flow slower and slower, and then you get deposited onto the banks of the river, and you don't flow around the river anymore, right? So this is going with the flow. And I would like to point out that if you're really going with the flow, and if the river is representative of life, that means you have very little say or very little control of what's going to happen to you, right? If you're already talking about going with the, strictly go with the flow, go with the flow. So if there's a rock, you get smashed, and maybe you want to, you're not sure whether you want to go here or here, but if you have a destination and you're just going with the flow, right, then you cannot choose where you want to go. And maybe you end up flowing in this bigger river, and then there's a waterfall. You all know what a waterfall is, and then boom, go down, and then you get smashed. You have no choice, right? Because you're a driftwood and you have no choice, right? Does everyone get it? I think going with the flow is this. Now, if you are captain of your ship, so the analogy will be you are on a boat, right? So if you're on a boat and you are the captain, you decide where you want to go. You decide where you want to go, right? And then you can paddle faster, or you can be a steamboat, or you can be a motorboat, and you can avoid the rocks, and you can choose where you want to go if you have a map. So that kind of, so it depends whether is that what you want, or do you want to be like a driftwood and have no say, or is that, what is your belief and philosophy about life? So this has everything to do with it. What kind of person are you? Because some people believe that they have no control over the events in their lives. Everything is fated. Some people see it that way. Whereas those who are more of a captain of the ship kind of a person, they believe, no, my destiny is in my hands, and I'm the captain of my ship, and I decide where I want to go. Right? You can even think, you don't talk about driftwood, right? If you talk about living animals like what you pointed out, like fish, right? Fish, they live in the river, and they, let's say even the fish is living in the river, and the river current can be very fast, but the fish is its own captain. It decides where to go, and it can choose to swim upstream. You all know fishes can swim upstream, right? It doesn't necessarily go with the flow of the river. Like the salmon fish, and trouts, they can go from the sea, they swim upriver, and then they lay the eggs, and then they die. Do you all know that? So that's a very famous fish that swims upriver, right, to lay their eggs. So fish can even swim against the river. This is to talk about real life here. And if I don't use the river analogy, all right, let's use the open sea analogy. All right, maybe life is not like a river and it's just flowing by, or people get the idea that river is a bit hard to control. Maybe it is in the open sea, right? You're in the open sea, big sea, right? In the sea. So in the sea, again, you can be driftwood or you can be a ship. And even though the sea is very big, I'll just draw, like, imagine this super big sea, okay? Super big sea. All right, this super big sea. Even in the sea, there are currents in the sea. You all know about currents in the sea, right? So you can be, there can be currents. And so we are looking at the sea from the top, right? There'll be currents around the sea, and there are famous currents that travels across different oceans, and apparently it's like a highway. And fishes, turtles, all the animals, they can ride on the current. Right, those of you who watch Finding Nemo, the cartoon, is featured in that. So there's such things. So there's big underwater currents, and then of course there is wind blowing and everything. Right. So if you're a piece of driftwood, you will be caught by the currents too. You'll be caught by the winds blowing, the waves, and so on. And you have no say. Again, you have no say. Right? And I think it probably is perfectly all right if you have nowhere to go. If you have nowhere to go, it's perfectly okay to go with the flow if you have no preference. Right? If you have no preference. But if you have a preference, right, you may want to be captain of your ship. Right? In captain of ship, so normally there will be a ship. And I'm just going to use the old kind of ships whereby they use sails, right? They have a sail. So this is a sail, right? The sail. And the ship will get affected by the wind and also the currents. Now, so for a ship that is sailing, let's say you're not a driftwood, you're a ship. All right? You are a captain of your ship and you choose to go with the flow. So if you're choosing to go with the flow as a ship, right? So because we are human, so we are more kind of like a ship. We can decide, do I want to go which direction? Or I can just, okay, let's cool it, let's just go put out the sails and see where the wind takes us. We can do it that way. So we don't consider a driftwood analogy. You're still captain of your ship, right? But you go with the flow. So if you go with the flow, you put out your sails, then it depends where the wind blows you, where the underwater currents takes you. So maybe, maybe the wind, will, if the wind is blowing this way and your sail is this way, then maybe you get pushed backwards, right? Right? This is your sail. This is the sail, and wind blows this way, maybe you get pushed backwards, you can't go in front. Right? And if you're going with the flow and you're not going to adjust the sail, then the wind is just going to push you back. And if you have a destination, that may not be exactly what you want. Right? And I want to mention this sailboat philosophy, this sailboat analogy, because I think a lot of times when people think about this, go with the flow, they sometimes think about this analogy too, right? They don't think of themselves as driftwood. They think themselves as a boat, a ship, and they have a choice whether to go with the flow or not go with the flow. Yes, we all have a choice. So the question is, should I go with the flow or should I not go with the flow? So if you go with the flow, the wind will push you and you don't do anything about it. And it depends whether is the weather good, right? If there's no wind, then you go nowhere. And if the weather is bad and there's a storm, you shouldn't even have your sails out. Right? Those of you who know a little bit about ships and sailing, if there is a storm, right, raining and the seas are terrible, you need to keep your sails, otherwise the ship will sink, right? Because the winds will be too strong in the storm. Right? You need to respond. So you need to be some kind of captain of my ship too. And a point that I want to make for you all is, even though you are captain of your ship and sailboat, and the wind is blowing against you, how many of you know that you can sail into the wind? How many of you know you can sail into the wind? Anybody know? Even a sailboat, let's say this is a sailboat, all right, and the wind, so the sailboat is going this way, right? If the wind is blowing in this direction, right? Let's say you are the boat, you want to go go there in that direction. That is the direction where you want to go. All right, you want to go in this direction, but the wind is blowing against you. You can still sail against the wind if you know how. And of course, any sailor, any captain of a sailboat will know how. I want to point out this analogy because when this question arises, to go with the flow or not, normally happens to us when things are maybe tough, or we are unsure of ourselves, or we have an original destination or goal, and things seems very tough against us. There seems to be headwind. You know, the wind is going against us in life. Whatever is happening in life seems to be going against what we want. Yes? Right? A lot of us have goals in life, ambitions and everything, and things don't necessarily go according to what we want. Right? And we feel that, and then they remember this thing, go with the flow. Maybe it's time to go with the flow. Maybe it's time, not to fight the wind. Maybe it's time to drop my goal, forget about my dreams and ambition, right? And just go with the flow and see where life takes me. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. I would like to use the same analogy, right? We're talking about going with the flow, and usually it's about a boat on river or open sea. That if you know how, if you are skilled as a boat, you can actually sail against the wind. And just to share with you all, right? Not everyone knows. They call it. If you all want to Google, you can call it. They call it tacking. If I'm not wrong, tacking. All right. So what the boat does is a skillful captain would take the boat zigzag, one direction, one way, right, and then to take the boat another way, then zigzag. So you kind of zigzag, and you can go against the wind. Even though the wind is blowing this way against your direction, you can zigzag. I will leave Google to explain. All right, it's physics, so you can still zigzag, and despite the wind blowing this direction, part of the wind will help you. Part of the wind blowing against your sail can help you go in the direction that you want. Just that you have to zigzag like that. All right, it's called tacking. All right, so I believe in using analogy. All right, so in life we will find that sometimes the going gets tough, and if we are like the captain who doesn't know how to do this tacking thing, then we'll find that we have no choice. We practically, if we don't have the skill and knowledge, then we practically have to abandon our goals, abandon our dreams, and then just wait it out. Go with the flow or wait it out, drop the sails. If we still want to go in this direction and we don't know how to do this zigzag thing, then we just got to drop the sails. Right? Drop the sails, don't let the wind push us back. Wait until the wind is over. Wait until the conditions are favorable, right? Some people do that in life, right? Wait for conditions to get favorable. Wait for the wind to be behind us. Then only we can move in that direction. But here, I would like to remind everyone, if you are a good captain of your ship and you have the skills, right? A good captain of a sailboat, no matter which direction the wind is blowing, the captain can get to where he or she wants. It is just a question of skill of the captain and the sailors on board, right? It has to be a team, right? Unless it's a solo boat. And the only conditions are when it's the roughest conditions, when it's a storm, then they have to lower the sails and they have to wait out the storm, because it would be foolish to sail into a storm. Okay, so this, I'm hoping to point out to you all this analogy, because I feel that when we are we are posed with this question, or when we are thinking about this, to go with the flow or not, we would be in the position of this captain and we are facing headwinds. Things are too tough, right? And you are the captain of a ship and you need to make a decision, should I go with the flow or not? Now, for me, right, I think it is a matter of our skill in handling life situations. If we don't have the skill and knowledge, then we probably have no choice but to go with the flow, because it will seem as if the forces around us is stronger than our own abilities. But if we are a skillful captain and, over years, right, a captain, when you first go out in a sailboat, you probably don't know how to do this tacking thing, and you don't know how to, no matter which direction the wind blows, you know how to adjust your sail to sail in the direction that you want. But if you have enough experience, you have enough knowledge and skill, right, as a captain of your ship, you will be able to do that. And the same analogy applies to life. This is a very simple answer I would like to give at this at this point in the talk. All right. Now, quite a number of you have made some comments. Let's go through with it. So everyone was asking, is it means let go, detach? So this is what I mean. All right. So it's not really detached, but it's like, going with whatever life, going with whatever circumstances, right? I'm using the ship analogy. Wayib is clarifying for himself, going with the flow doesn't mean that we give up 100% control. Navigation is still needed. However, fighting current and wind direction will be tough, right? That's what Wayib says. So I'm just pointing out, if you're really skillful enough, the wind is not a problem, right? Wind is not a problem even in a sailboat, just that not many people are aware of it. And again, Wayib is talking about, Wayib is clarifying again, I'm talking about feng shui, not Edwin's question. In contrast, they say the future is in our hands. The possibilities are infinite. God help those who help themselves. All right, Wayib, perhaps you are answering your question. So Wayib is thinking of in feng shui, or I would say, right, people who are of this go with the flow, they believe in destiny, right? And they believe that things are fate. And I actually have a talk about that, destiny versus free will. So those of you, you can just go to our YouTube channel, look up the playlist for spiritual questions answered, and the talk will be there. Basically, there is destiny. I will explain there is destiny, right? There are things that are fated, but it's a planning. And ultimately, what will decide is free will. Because life is like this boat, right? You can have a plan to go somewhere, but you can change your plans. The destiny can be changed. And ultimately, who decides will be the captain of this ship. The captain of the ship is the major analogy. Here is where you totally take charge. All right? Here is where you totally go with the flow. So some people believe destiny cannot be changed. But the thing is this, if you go with the flow, do you really think you can achieve your destiny? Right? That is, you'll be like a driftwood. Right? You can get smashed in the rocks and you have no say if you are really, 100% go with the flow. All right? So Edwin is saying, if you're talking about trading, then follow hedge fund manager's direction would be best. If talking about everyday choice, better don't go with flow. Just use logic to go for happiness direction. So, this hedge fund managers thing, I'm not sure whether you know, I think a few years back, the hedge fund managers fared so badly, right, that a lot of investors pull out their monies out of hedge funds. I think it was just a few years ago, right? Or maybe due to the pandemic situation and all those. So hedge fund managers, usually they're quite experienced, but even then they can be caught, right? But that's just hedge fund. So, but back to this thing, I agree with Edwin. Sometimes you just have to use logic, right, to go for happiness. Now, Edwin, if flow direction same with own direction, then go with flow. If flow direction not same as own direction, better to assess the risk in following the flow direction. Yes. But the question still remains, do you have a direction in mind? All right, I just want to, right, do you have a direction in mind? So most of us have a direction. Maybe I shouldn't say most, okay? Now, some of us have goals and ambitions, and we have a clear direction where we want to go. And some people have no direction. So if you don't have any destination, I think it's perfectly fine to go with the flow and see where life takes you. And then you're a captain of the ship, and then you see whether you want to sail. You just let the winds and the currents take you, and then you can. If it's someplace nice, you can stay there, stay at the port, stay at the island, stay at the on the land, or so you can go with the flow a bit, right? But if you have a very clear direction, a clear destination that you want to go, I think you really need to be a captain of the ship whereby you take full charge, right, of where you want to go. So it's like what Edwin says, use logic, right? But says, for those who go with the flow, the song by Beatles, Let It Be, what? Let It Be. Okay, I'm not very good at singing. And David says, I chose to follow the clues that shows up in my reality because I feel I don't have enough wisdom to make a decisive path. Yes. So some people believe in signs, right? I think David is talking about signs. So follow the clues, follow what seems to be the will of the heavens or the will of the universe. Some people like to say or try to get a hint of what destiny is. And some people will go to astrology, go to different types of life destiny readings and all those. Chinese, we have 八字, 紫微斗数, which is a form of astrology, and different types of forecasting, right? Some people will do that. And Izudin, can we put it as going with the flow actually refers to us following our instincts and authenticity? As you said, we can opt for a direction of happiness, but deep down we feel troubled for not following what we suppress. Example, ambitions, goals, etc. By that, we are not actually going with the flow, but staying at our comfort zone. Yes, so you can say that, and I think that is kind of a separate question. So we need to do, going with the flow is you still need to do your homework, as in you need to decide where you want to go. Because if you are the captain of the ship, right? Actually, we are all captains of the ship, just that we need to decide whether we want to go with the flow or we have a destination and we want to learn the skills so that we can go against the flow or go with whatever whatever the conditions are. So, so it really depends on where you are right now, right? If I were to, I don't think there's a fixed answer on this. It's just that, excuse me, it's just that there's one thing here which I believe I need to address later, is this thing about this this Tao Te Ching, all right, and the religion of Tao, right? Why why they emphasize so heavily on going with the flow, right? I think that will complete the big picture. But right now, I hope everyone has a very good idea, right? That look, we are all actually captains of our ship. We just need to decide whether we want to just drift and allow the forces of nature, right, or destiny take us where we go, or we have a destination and our free will shall determine the results in our life. And if you can go and watch the video, right, destiny versus free will, and actually I'll just keep it very simple. In that video, the summary actually is to let you all know, right? Yes, there is destiny. There's heaven. Heaven has a way of planning our lives for us, but we are still given free will what we want to do. And so we retain the free will to whether go with the flow or not. So it's kind of the topic is kind of lame. So ultimately, everything depends on your free will. And if you decide on free will, your free will is to just go with the flow, then you may be a boat sailing on the river, right? And you can go with the flow, but you still probably don't want to just go with the flow blindly. You want to avoid the rocks. And if you know there's a waterfall here, you better take the smaller stream and be safe, right? You don't want your boat to crash down the waterfall. Yes, that is a more logical thing, like Evan says. And David is saying numerology and parts. Yes, so there's those kind of life uh, life prophecy or kind of reading. And when you jokes aside, the critical juncture on go with the flow or take charge is when our challenge overwhelms us, when people almost lose hope. What would be the view? I mean, which direction should we choose? Yes. All right. That is usually what I was trying to get at, right? So usually we arrive at this situation whereby we feel that the headwinds against us are too strong. So it really ultimately depends on whether do you have the skill to be able to do this. Because if you have the skill and you have a destination, you will definitely be able to do this. If you don't have the skill, right, then or you have learned the skill but you have not mastered the skill, so you can try to go against the wind, but maybe you don't end up in your exact destination, but you can end up a bit off course, right? We can end up a bit off course, and then maybe fine. So we can always adjust adjust your sails and everything to go to your destination at the time like this. But if you really don't have the skill, and Wai is asking, so what do you do? Then you have practically no choice. You just have to go with the flow because you have no skill, or you at that moment, right? You feel hopeless. You have lost hope. You have to go with the flow and see what comes up for you. Eileen here says, whatever we decide to go with the flow. Now, I feel the most important thing is whether we take responsibility and accept our decisions. Yes. Eileen is a very experienced person in life. Ultimately, at the end of the day, right, it is a decision we made, and we have to just accept the consequences of our decision without blame, without shaming ourselves or anybody, right? Don't blame ourselves, don't blame other people, and without guilt, right? Without guilt. That is very important. Edwin is saying astrological charts can tell 99% what will happen in the future, yet one's willpower can modify the final outcome. Yes. But I don't necessarily agree astrological charts can tell 99% what will happen in the future. I don't know any astrologer that is like more accurate than even 70%. If some astrologer can get 70%, is already very good. Yeah. So 99% is but it can predict destiny, right? You can predict the destiny, what was planned, but because of free will, right? A lot of us have free will, and a lot of us, you see, destiny can say you're meant to be there. Your soul planning say you're meant to be there, but sometimes we give in to the circumstances, and sometimes we just choose to drift. We choose to go with the flow, and then we don't fulfill our destiny, right? I think many of you, right, if you were to look at the lives of self-made billionaires, they are almost all, not those who inherit, right? Those who self-made billionaires, they're usually the captain of their ships. They take charge. Yes, and they go against the headwinds, and as they go against the headwinds, they learn and they acquire the skill to go against the headwinds, right? Okay, now I'm going to address this big question here, because this go with the flow is very big in Tao. So I My Chinese is not very good, so when I read the Tao Te Ching, it is English translations. I have a book here with me. I've got another book somewhere, but this is the book I could find. So I'm just going to read some quotes related uh, to this from the Tao Te Ching. And mind you, Tao Te Ching is originally in ancient Chinese poetic, all right, and it's very difficult to translate. And this is just one of the modern translations, right? Classical translations, there are a few people, and you can always Google. So for example, there is this chapter 3. All right. I will read the line in question. All right. The line in question is summarized as this: practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. This translation is by Stephen Mitchell. Stephen Mitchell. All right, because the common translations are all available in the internet. I found this guy's translation to be, well, I find it pretty decent. All right. So for chapter 3, of course, there are 81 poems. All right. So the third poem, on the last line, he translates as practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. Now, this is chapter 3. So let me read the full translation of the poem number 3 or chapter 3. If you overesteem great men, people become powerless. If you overvalue possessions, people begin to steal. The master leads by emptying people's minds and filling their cores, by weakening their ambition and toughening their resolve. He helps people lose everything they know, everything they desire, and creates confusion in those who think that they know. Practice not doing, and everything will fall into place. So this is his translation, and another translation may sound very different. Actually, number 2, poem number 2 also has something like that. He translates the relevant part. Therefore, the master acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. She has but doesn't possess, acts but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That is why it lasts forever. All right. So there are, let me see whether I can read others. They're all very similar. Now, one thing, this author likes to use the term master. All right, in Tao Te Ching, he likes to use the term master. So different authors will translate. Some people will translate it as a holy man, and some people will translate it as a sage. All right. So just to be clear, the Chinese word is sheng ren, which can also be translated as a saint person. All right, sheng ren, I think is written this way, sheng ren. All right, this is a modern Chinese. Sheng ren is the actual word. So the translator says master. Now, I don't have the time to go through the Tao Te Ching. Just a few things to help you see why this go with the flow seems to be there, and I need to point out this term here, sheng ren. Now, in order to make the point, I have to point out this sheng ren because if if I just read maybe one or two more, right, whereby this analogy of go with the flow or not, there is this mention of this master. All right. So let me see. Can we find another one? Okay, number 12. The relevant part. Huh? The master observes the world, but trusts his inner vision. He allows things to come and go. His heart is open as the sky. All right. So again, people interpret because he allows things to come and go. So it's like go with the flow. Again, I point out there is this term, 生人. All right. The Chinese word will be 生人 normally, or this author using the translation master. Number 16. The last bit. The master doesn't seek fulfillment. Not seeking, not expecting. She is present and can welcome all things. Doesn't seek fulfillment, like have no destination, right? Just go with the flow. So if you were to go through the Tao Te Ching, you will come across quite a number. And my point here is this, all right? If you want to read the Tao Te Ching, you must realize this, you must read with the context. The context here is the master does nothing. The master goes with the flow. But if you really read the Tao Te Ching or translation or whatever, you will notice there are a lot more that will talk about the master, right? What kind of person the master is? The master is supposed to be this 圣人. 圣人 can mean saint person, all right? Saint person, direct translation, so it can be sage, holy man, master, right? So in the Tao Te Ching, this master or saint person is supposed to be a person who has mastered the Tao. All right, mastered Taoism, mastered the Tao. So this book talks about the Tao, and what are the characteristics of this saint person, of this master. And I would like you all to know that if you want to go with the flow, and you're referring to Tao Te Ching, the Tao Te Ching is actually referring to the master, and the master is a person of high spiritual cultivation. And what are the things that the master is supposed to cultivate? For example, in poem number 7, the master stays behind. That is why she is ahead. She is detached from all things. That is why she is one with them. Because she has let go of herself, she is perfectly fulfilled. Right? So, a key point will be the master is, okay, I don't like the term detached, I also use detached. So those of you who know, I use the term non-attached. And you see there's a lot of reference to the master letting go. And there's description of the Tao itself. The Tao, again from the number 7, the Tao is infinite, eternal. Why is it eternal? It was never born, thus it can never die. Why is it infinite? It has no desires for itself, thus it is present for all beings. Right? So no desires, you let go, non-attached or letting go. The master, again, poem number 5, the Tao doesn't take sides. It gives birth to both good and evil. The master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners. Okay, let's see. Others, it's like kind of everywhere. Poem number 27. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus, the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. This is called embodying the light. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost. However intelligent you are, it is the great secret. So it's a very philosophical translation. The Tao Te Ching itself is very philosophical. And if you read it, you will understand there's a lot of talk about the Tao, the yin yang. But I would like to highlight this. You will notice it talks about the master. And the master is a person who is non-attached and of high spiritual cultivation, who've let go of desires, of wants. Someone like that does not really have a destination, because someone like that is so in control of himself or herself that no matter where they go, life does not affect them very much. It is a different kind of life compared to what normal people live. In fact, I'm nowhere near there. All right, I'm nowhere near that. So we need to understand that. But this Tao Te Ching talks about the Tao and talks about the master and sets forth a blueprint for those who want to seek the Tao way, the way, or the way, what is called the way, that you need to let go of your attachments. And if you can let go of your attachments, it doesn't matter. You can just be like a driftwood and nothing will ever harm you. Unlike normal people, you're a driftwood, you get smashed into the rock. But the master is full of mastery, that the master, he or she, does not get smashed by the rock, right? And can fully go with the flow. And that is kind of nice, because imagine, for a lot of people, I can imagine for a lot of people who read Tao Te Ching, and if you are for many of us, even including myself, when I first read it, I thought, wow, it's mind-blowing. Can I just go with the flow? And it took me a while to realize that, hey, they're actually talking about master, and I'm nowhere a master. I'm not a saint person, I'm not a sage, I'm not a holy man, and I don't have the characteristics that is talked about by the book, by the Tao Te Ching. So it doesn't exactly apply to me. And if I were to just go with the flow, I will end up like a ship, right? And hopefully luck or the winds or the current will take me somewhere favorable. That is actually what I was hoping for. I mean, I've gone through life whereby I felt powerless, where I felt the forces of events happening around me are beyond me and I cannot sail into the wind, and I just go with the flow. So I think everyone feels that. But if you were to read the Tao Te Ching and think that ultimately we should just go with the flow, I'm here to let you all know, all right, you need to read the Tao Te Ching carefully. The one who lets go and totally go with the flow is the master. And most of us are not there. Right? Most of us live lives whereby we need to have goals. We have a certain direction that we want in life. We have certain things that we want in life, but the master has nothing that he or she wants in life. Nothing. Right? A person who's like that can totally go with the flow. But for us, if we want something, or rather, don't talk about wanting something, if we don't want bad things to happen for us, the master doesn't also, has totally let go, right? Also don't mind bad things happening, and the master will use the situation. I don't know whether you remember the poem I just read the translation of, right? One of the poems, the master will use every situation, and it's the master. It doesn't matter. But for most of us, we don't want suffering, yes? We are attached to pain. We still feel pain. So we don't want suffering. We don't want poverty. How many of you want poverty? Right? Nobody wants poverty, right? Poverty sucks in this modern world. So please take note, right? Because if you're referring totally go with the flow, and you are a big fan of Tao Te Ching, and I believe Tao Te Ching is one of the strongest advocates that you read, because in all other, I don't think other spirituality talks about it quite the way as Tao Te Ching talks about it. It's like there are many poems in there, many chapters in there that more or less refers to this characteristic of letting go, but it's a characteristic of the master or of the Tao. And Eileen has a very good point. In the days of Tao Te Ching, life is more simple and not as complex as today. That is correct too, right? Having said that, it is not the external circumstances that matters. It is the internal. And that is where the master has mastered himself or herself such that internally, right, they can deal with all external circumstances and can go with the flow. All right? Any other questions? I hope I managed to share with you all my take on this $1 million question. That's what you calls it. Any questions? Anyone who's a fan of Tao Te Ching or who got the idea from it, right? This go with the flow. If anyone who's read Tao Te Ching, you will I'm sure you will get this go with the flow concept or the aim of doing nothing. Oh yeah, maybe I should talk about it. Have you? There's one particular thing. Not doing anything yet still achieving something. That is one of the characteristics of the master. All right. So this master goes with the flow and is able to accomplish things by not doing anything. It's like, wow. Right? Wow. How does that happen? A very important point of the master is, right? Master, I think this author used a very good translation, master, because the key point is mastery. And how does a master accomplish things by not doing anything? Right? When you are a master, you focus on being a person. You no longer focus on doing. And it talks about don't try to convince people, right? The master doesn't try to convince people and so on. So any one of us who is in life, you realize that we don't want to try and do things and force people. The book also talks about governance, right? If you don't have repressive laws, there will be less criminals, that kind of thing, right? The kind of a paradoxical, oxymoronic situation, right? So it's also the same thing. So what the master does, right, is we try not to do so much as in forcing things to happen, but work on being, changing the self. This is internal change, right? Internal change. Internal change. The key point is mastery, is focusing on who we are, the beingness. We be a person. We don't just do, we don't just talk, right? But internally, we need to change ourselves. And a lot of it is about letting go, is about non-attachment. All right? So if we aim to totally be able to go with the flow, we need to work on ourselves. We can actually accomplish things by just being, because like, how can we influence people? So some people say, oh, we need to be leader, and the Tao Te Ching does talk about, if you're a leader, you don't lead by giving instructions, right? You lead by being with the people, right? You one of the metaphors in the book, sorry, I can't remember which poem I remember, is the leader needs to be humble. It must be like water. It flows lower, water flows lower. So the leader must learn to be humble, so you'll be part of the people, and you lead that way. It is your being that makes people follow you, right? The water will follow you, so you just need to be lower. You need to be more humble. It's a very good book, right? So I do advise people, if you're really interested in going with the flow, please find yourself a copy of Tao Te Ching. You read the interpretation. Bear in mind the context, right? It normally applies to the master and Tao. Okay, and David, Evan says thanks or welcome. David says a little Tao Te Ching is good for life. Yes. James say I think that Wu Wei doesn't necessarily always go with the flow. More about being still enough to be able to think and make the right decision rather than being too attached to the situation. Yes. So James is talking about another central concept in Tao Te Ching. It's called Wu Wei, non-self. All right. So well, basically, essentially, it goes back to being non-attached. Okay. James says, "Okay, I'm going to read Tao Te Ching tonight." And James says, "Acting from a place of stillness." Yes, place of stillness. Again, you need mastery. All right, you need letting go. Is internal thing. And Isudin, this sounds similar to the psychological term locus of control. Like externalizing is taking the blaming stance and not taking responsibility and accountability for our actions. Whereas internalizing is accepting what is not within control and takes ownership of ourselves. That's very good. Locus of control. Oh, Izudin, I didn't know you are into psychology. You're a psychology student? And when you say thanks, Kat, I think the biggest lesson tonight, we need to learn to accept uncertainty in life while we continue to live towards our goal without expectation of the outcome. Yes, and the Tao Te Ching also talks about if you are a master, you should not have expectations. You should do, but not have expectations, right? It's a very good read. It's actually very short. Those who read Chinese, if you just to read the Chinese poems, it's really very short, but you'll be scratching your heads even if you're Chinese educated, from what I understand. Right? All my friends tell me that my Chinese educated friends. So I'm not Chinese educated. I read the English translations, but different translations, slightly different meaning. All right. I think we don't have any more last minute questions, right? So thank you everyone for joining me. I hope I managed to shed some light on this $1,000,000 question. And if you guys feel you have benefited, do consider making a donation to support our online events. If you can't afford it, it's all it's all free. It's okay. And if you have some time tomorrow night will be Unity Qigong, Sunday 9 p.m. Right? Thank you everyone for joining me, and I hope to see you all again. Have a good night, good day, goodbye. Thank you.